Hey everyone, welcome to my new Albion Online series. I'm NoobJay, and I'm diving into this game with fresh eyes. I played a tiny bit a handful of years ago, but let's be real, I don't know much. But that's the fun part. Albion Online is a sandbox MMO, meaning there's no set path. You can do whatever you want. You can craft, you can fight, you can gather, you can trade, transport, whatever. It's up to you, and that's actually what excites me. I do love sandbox games. It is a much different experience than, say, like a theme park MMO. And I'm not going to spend too much time here explaining my character choices here. Let's just get through this and jump into the action. Alright, fresh out of character creation, we land in the tutorial. Albion eases you in with some basic tasks. Movement, gathering, crafting, and combat. If you've ever played an MMO before, this is all pretty standard. You start by gathering some materials, crafting some weapons, smacking some creatures around. And it's all about learning the fundamentals. I won't bore you with every step, but here's the gist. You gather wood, stone, fiber, hide, ore, things like that. Craft tools, fight some enemies, and you get a feel for the game systems, right? It's simple. It's quite literally what it is. And then, by the end, you got a basic understanding of how to exist in Albion. And now the real adventure begins. Soon as we wrap up the tutorial, we get to pick where we want to go. And essentially, the tutorial will tell you at certain points, like, hey, mix up all the armor types. The cloth, the plate, the leather, it's a classless. Find a combination that suits you. And since we started out with like a blade and sword, I don't know what I want to do. I'm just going to choose a region that's going to have cotton, hide, and iron. But now that we're out of the tutorial and we're into the real world, we're broke. We're not weaponless, but basically with our tier 2 set, we're kind of a medieval peasant at this point. So really, what's the first thing that we do? Take a quest, of course, which sends us off to gather materials and start crafting. In Albion, everything you use is made by players. That means if you want better gear, you either have to craft it or buy it from somebody else who did. Since we're broke, hey, we're crafting. As I stated earlier, all the items are either made by you or made by somebody else, right? And I'm talking about everything. There's two different ways to do it, right? We can go PvE or we can go gather. Now, PvE is just really us slaying mobs. There's little enemies out in the world, and we're going to go slay them. It's going to give us silver for us slaying them. Sometimes they'll drop a weapon, which the weapons that they drop come from other players. We can talk about that later. And then with that silver, we can go buy the item that we want. On the other hand, there's gathering, where we have to get the requirements of the item with that we want to craft. And then we need to see what items it takes and then what items we need to generate those items. Now, we can either buy those ingredients or we can go get them ourselves. So that's gather and craft at a high level. My goal is to craft a full tier 3 set of all of the weapons and armor I was already using and wearing. To figure out what I needed to gather, I first looked at all of the items and what they needed. While this can look daunting at first glance, let's break it down line by line quickly. First, we have the item on the left and the input materials we need on the right to craft it. Simple, right? Each component is made up of a raw material which you gather, and then the refined final output of the previous tier. Still with me? Great. Okay, so now we take how many we need and we multiply that by the input materials. And then we just simply go line by line by line, doing the math out until we have the final numbers of everything that we need. As I said before, we also need the previous tier's finished refined product. So we can either craft these ourselves and gather what we need for that, or we can buy these. Now, I'll be honest, this was a bit of a grind. I probably could have saved myself a considerable amount of time just simply buying what I needed. But I kind of found it relaxing, and there's something about, you know, wearing something that you took the time to go build. Did run into one issue, which actually slowed me down. The Destiny board, at first glance, had me confused, but it actually is pretty simple. Let me show you kind of what I mean when I ran into a bit of a problem. See, I didn't have the levels, and so I dug in a little deeper. See, the Destiny board, when you zoom out, is just a giant spider web kind of thing, but when you zoom in, you start in the center. As you get fame, which is essentially experience in Albion, the node fills out to the next one, and it slowly webs out towards the edges. In my case, I needed this, the crafting node. Now, this was filled out after the tutorial. When you click on a node, you can see how much fame you need to unlock it. In this case, it's refining any tier 2 resource, literally any of them, and it'll give me fame towards it. And then underneath that is the rewards that you get when you are able to unlock the node. In this case, I can craft all these items. As I said before, the Destiny board webs outwards. So for the next one, I needed to craft this tier 3 sword, which I needed. I had to unlock this node. And of course, I also had to unlock the refining nodes as well. But every node essentially functions the same way. Once I had crafted my tier 3 set, it was time to jump into my first dungeon. It's pretty fun. I just kind of ran through and killed a bunch of stuff. A few times my health was low. I even found a chest randomly in there. And then, well, finally I had the boss, and that was a fight. Once I got done and I went back, I turned in the quest and I thought to myself, do I really want to stay in this starter area or just go to the city and get started? It's a sandbox, so you know what I did. I grabbed my bucket and started building sandcastles. Off to the city we go, baby. Wasn't long before I had arrived and started thinking about my next adventure through Albion. And that's it for today's episode. We've got our character, we finished the tutorial, crafted our first real gear. Next time we're going to venture further into the world and figure out what kind of playstyle I want to go for. If you're an Albion veteran, feel free to drop some tips in the comments. I will definitely need them, and if you're a newbie like me, well, let's learn this together. Please, if you've watched it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, and if you want to follow the journey, I'll see you in the next one. NoobJay, out.